Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to learn about bearings. Bearings is a very important topic for IGCSE mathematics syllabus. What are bearings and what are the types of questions that can be asked? We'll cover that in this video. So without wasting time, let's do some maths. First, we'll try to understand what are bearings. So let's check. Bearings is an angle which is measured from north, and it is always measured between the 2 points. And what are the rules of bearings? So we are going to understand the rules of bearings and how to measure the bearing between 2 points. So let's check the first one. It says bearing is always calculated from the north direction. Second, bearing is always calculated in clockwise direction. And bearing is always written in 3 significant figures. So let's check from an example. The first one, let's say I'm standing at point A and my friend is standing at point B. So let's join the line A and B. Okay. And if we have to calculate the bearing of point B from point A, we'll always follow these 3 rules. The first one is bearing is always calculated from the north direction. So what we'll do, we'll sketch a line right above point A like this, and we'll mark it as our north line. So this is the north line. Second rule says bearing is always calculated in clockwise direction. That means when we have to find the bearing, which is an angle from the north line in the clockwise direction, this is the angle that we have to measure. And the bearing is always calculated in 3 significant figure or written in 3 significant figure. So for example, let's say this is 110 degrees. So this is how we will write 110 degrees. Where it is used? It is generally used and majorly used in navigation. Sailors, pilots, they use bearings to describe their locations to their fellow mates. But what are the questions that can be asked in examinations? Let's check. So here is a sample. The first one, it says calculate the bearing of A from point B. So the bearing of B from A is already given. So this is the north line, and from point A we can clearly see that the angle that is given is 110 degrees. We have to calculate the bearing of A from point B. So we'll again follow those 3 golden rules of bearings. The first one is bearing is always calculated from north, and it is always calculated in clockwise direction. So from north in clockwise direction to the line which is reaching to point A, bearing of A from B. So this is the angle that we have to measure. So now we can clearly see that if this is north line, we can sketch a south line here. So this is south, north and south. This part is going to be completely 180 degrees, and this remaining part we have to find. And how do we do that? So now we know that between two parallel lines, the co-interior angles always add up to 180 degree. That will make this angle as 70 degrees because this is 110 degrees, so this will be 70 degree. If this is 70 degree, this will again be 110 degrees, right? Straight angle property. So the bearing of A from B is going to be 180 degrees plus further 110 degrees. So that is going to be 290 degrees. So that's the bearing of A from point B. Let's check the next question. It says the bearing of a ship from a lighthouse is 50 degrees. Work out the bearing of the lighthouse from the ship. So let's check. Let's mark 50 degree angle. It says the bearing of a ship from a lighthouse is 50 degree. Let's say our ship is here and we have to show 50 degrees. Yeah. So let's say this is our north line. Yeah, 50 degree will be approximately at this point. So I'll just join these 2 points. This is the ship, this is the lighthouse, and we have to use a protractor to mark this angle, which is 50 degree, 0, 5, 0 degrees. This is 50 degrees from the north line, and let's say this is the place where we have the lighthouse. So again, we are going to draw a north line here. It is going to be parallel to the previous north. Okay, now it says work out the bearing of lighthouse from the ship. The bearing of ship from the lighthouse is 50. The bearing of ship from the lighthouse is 50. That means we have lighthouse here and ship here. Lighthouse is here and the ship is here, and this is given to us as 50 degree. Now they're telling us work out the bearing of the lighthouse from the ship. That means we'll calculate the bearing from the north line in clockwise direction towards the lighthouse, because we have to calculate the bearing of the lighthouse from the ship. So this angle we have to calculate. We know that this is 50 degree, so this angle is going to be 130 degrees. So the remaining angle is going to be 360 minus 130 degree. That is going to be 230 degrees. That is going to be the bearing. This whole angle is going to be 230 degrees. That's how we calculate the bearing. Let's check another question, question number 3. It says the diagram shows the position of each of the 3 buildings in a town. The bearing of the hospital from the art gallery. The bearing of the hospital from the art gallery is 72 degree, which is marked in the diagram as well. The bearing of the hospital from the art gallery is 72 degrees. The cinema is due east of the hospital. The cinema is due east of the hospital. The distance from the hospital of the art gallery is equal to the distance from the hospital to the cinema. So that is exactly equal. It says work out the bearing of the cinema from the art gallery. Bearing of the cinema from the art gallery. That means we have to find the bearing of the cinema from the art gallery. That means we have to find this angle. Now, how do we find this angle? To find this angle, we have to find this angle first, because without this angle, because we have only this angle, which is 72 degrees, we have to find this angle to find the bearing of the cinema from the art gallery, which is this one. So how do we do that? We can clearly see that this is 72 degrees, so, and this is marked as 90 degree over here. So this angle is going to be 180 minus 72, which is 108 degrees. So this is going to be 108 degrees. So this angle, now this angle is going to be 360 minus 90 minus 108, angles at a point, so that's the remaining angle, which is 162 degrees. So this is 162 degrees, and this triangle AHC, AH and C, is an isosceles triangle because the length or the distance from art gallery to hospital is equals to the distance from the hospital to the cinema. That makes this triangle an isosceles triangle. So the base angles are going to be equal. This and this angle is going to be equal. So how do we calculate that? 180 degrees minus 162 degrees divided by 2. That makes this angle as 9 degree each. This is 9 and this angle is also 9. Let's check once again. So 180 minus 162 divided by 2, that's 9 degrees. So the bearing of cinema from the art gallery is going to be 72 degrees plus further 9 degrees, which is equals to 81 degrees. But we are writing the bearing, so we will not write it in two significant figure. Our answer will be 081 degrees, and that's the answer. Let's check one more question. Question number 4, it says a helicopter flies from its base B to deliver the supplies to two camps C and D. We can, okay, from B to C and D, we can see that clearly in the diagram. C is 6 km due east of B. C is 6 km due east of B. And the distance from C to D is 8 kilometers. D is from the bearing of 120 degree from B, which is marked here in this diagram here. It says find the bearing of D from C. We have to find the bearing of D from C. That means we have to find this angle and the bearing. In the question, it was clearly mentioned that C is 6 km due east of B. That makes this angle as 90 degrees. So if this is 90 degree, the remaining angle is going to be, this angle is going to be 30 degrees, because the total bearing of or the bearing of D from point B is marked as 120 degrees. So this is going to be going to be 30 degree, and this will also be 90 degrees because it's exactly at north, and this is 90. This is a straight line. That makes this angle also as 90 degree, and we have to find this angle. Bearing of, we have to calculate the bearing of D from C. So this angle, this one, let's say this is X. So for that we have to calculate this angle. So how can we calculate this angle? We have this distance, the opposite side, we have this distance, but we don't have angle D. So we can find angle D first using sine rule. So we can write sine 30 degrees divided by 8 kilometer, which is equals to sine angle D divided by 6 kilometers. And let's find the angle D first. So sine D will be 6 into sine 30 degree divided by 8. Let's try to calculate that. So 6 into sine 30 divided by 8, and the answer is 3 by 8. So angle D is going to be sine inverse 3 by 8. So the measurement of angle D is going to be sine inverse answer, which is 22 degrees, approximately 22 degrees. That means this angle D is 22 degrees. This angle is 22 degrees. If this is 22 degree, we can find this angle, which is 180 minus 30 minus 22, which is 128 degrees. So this angle is 128 degrees. If this is 128 degrees, the value of angle X is going to be 360 minus 128 minus 90, which is exactly 142 degrees. So we'll write it over here. So angle C, or the bearing C, will be calculated like this: 360 degree minus the other angles at that particular point, minus 128 degrees minus 90 degrees. That is coming out as 142 degrees, and that's the bearing of D from point C, and this is the answer. So this is how we solve problems based on bearings. It's a very important topic for IGCSE syllabus. So if you have any questions, any queries, please write it down in the comment section. And if this is helpful, do consider sharing it with your friends so they can also get benefit from this. That's all for this session. Bye everyone.